Well, hello, good morning to you and welcome to our latest Cardiff Life Business Club, a professional services special. We'll be featuring disparate tales from companies navigating this new world just like you are. And the new world got yet newer, I guess, with yesterday's announcement, and we'll come on to that. My name is Greg of Cardiff Life, publisher Media Clash, and you would think that after last night there's only one place to begin. What now? Not quite, we'll come on to that. That'll be in the company of our distinguished panel of professional services companies, Marsh Commercial, NatWest and Howells Solicitors. Instead, I want to begin on a couple of parish notices, stuff that we've been doing and are planning. Firstly, following the frankly joyous triumph of our virtual Cardiff Life Awards back in those long forgotten days of lockdown, might well be coming back, we're doing it all again. Real life, of course, we hope this time, March 11th, City Hall. Nominations open in a month or so, and remaining sponsorships are available now, so please avail yourself of that opportunity. Secondly, and this is coming slightly backwards chronologically, there's the return of the Cardiff Property Awards on Friday, the 29th of Jan. It's a lunchtime affair featuring those convivial business meetings that this sector in particular most enjoys, where, of course, much business is done. Noms open yet sooner, and sponsorships likewise are available. And we're delighted on the sponsorship front to welcome our two latest sponsors to the Cardiff Property Awards, that is Savills and Specialist Security. In both cases, it will be superb to bring businesses together once more, particularly after this year that we've had. We're needing to figure ways to build our business pipelines. Joining the awards as finalists or sponsors is one great way to do that. Whatever travails we have faced and our teams, we have all got to find ways of just getting on with generating the business to help fill some of the gaps in these times. And yet, to say, our nomination forms will of course be cognizant of this year. We'll be asking how you have navigated these times. And if you're at all feeling, well, gosh, it's been such a poor year, I'm not sure about nominating, give or take, that's true of everyone. So it's a relative position. How well have you done given the circumstances? I think there'll be, frankly, very few businesses be able to trumpet major growth and extraordinary success, but you will be able to talk about how you have navigated these times where, I guess, we're all in the same storm, but in very different boats. One other, it is, of course, not impossible that circumstances may conspire to prevent real life gatherings at that point. We'll see, and we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. Confident, of course, fully confident in the knowledge that virtual events really can rock, to use the terminology. Confident they can have massive reach, as we saw from the Cardiff Life Awards, that real life ones can't. And confident, of course, the businesses of Cardiff have been truly exceptionally determined to drive value where they can and to help us celebrate excellence wherever we can. There is just one more thing on our local agenda, which is, of course, the return of Cardiff Life. We are so proud, so pleased to be publishing once more from this Friday, every 3 weeks, celebrating the glories of Cardiff, issue in, issue out. It's actually been pretty emotional for us. Of course, this is a business, we are a commercial company, but publishing magazines and running events is what we do. That is our world as creatives. For a creative company not magazines, is really, really tough, actually, so it proves. We've never experienced that before, as none of us have ever experienced any of this before. And we've felt as though we've almost been fretting on the sidelines, looking on for 6 months, wanting to get out there. But we're back now on the pitch and determined to play our part to the very full in this city, celebrating the best of Cardiff, promoting the businesses, galvanising business thinking, including such events as today, providing help and insight where we can. Again, today is a platform for that, and maintaining a plausibly positive tone. Both words really matter, giving reassurance about all that is happening in Cardiff. Good luck to us all. I suspect we may well need it, but the resilience and ingenuity of this city is what will continue to tide us through these times. Now, to today's business. Cardiff Business Club Cardiff Life Business Club is being recorded and will be published shortly on YouTube later today. You can ask questions anonymously or named as you wish, and I'll be interviewing on your behalf Rhys Perkins from Marsh Commercial, our platinum sponsors of the Cardiff Life Awards. Thank you. Shipman, NatWest, a judge at the awards one time, Mark Hobbs, Howells Solicitors, a former winner of the awards. You'd think this was planned, wouldn't you? Well, come on, it's us we're talking about. Let's kick off with Rhys. If we could ask Rhys to step forward, we'll have a quick chat with him. If through the magic of Zoom technology, Rhys is going to appear in a nanosecond, I am sure. Or he may require me to keep talking about the wonders of Marsh. I'm not sure I can do that for too long, but I can give it a go. Rhys, are you able to join us? Because if not, I'm going to switch. I can see you now. There you go. You did that deliberately, didn't you?
Well, it's always fun, isn't it, using these Zoom calls. Something never quite works right, does it? No matter what you do, no matter how much you try.
You would think that all of us, in our different ways, would be, so skilled, so versed in the world of Zoom. But no, I reckon you did that deliberately just to see what I was going to say to fill in the gaps. But anyway, very nice to see you. And tell us how you've been in these times.
For me personally, it's been obviously, like many others out there, a very trying and testing time. There's been many ups and downs. I don't want to focus too many, on the downs, but the ups. I'll be able to spend time with my family, working from home. It's been lovely to be able to, cook my kids dinner every night, drop them off to school recently in the morning before going to the office. So there has been, some small elements I think I can take away as positives. And I like to lean on them in very difficult times, especially after last night. Professionally, it's been tough as well. Let's all be totally honest. It's been difficult for many industries and sectors out there. We did see, we started to see a bit of an upturn in the country and the business. But I think it's just time for people to have a good understanding of what they have, what they currently do to help each other, really.
Yeah, and we'll come on to that latter point right towards the end, where, as you know, with Cardiff Life, we've been very much pushing that hashtag Cardiff Together, helping celebrate the good that people do. And I'll ask each of our panelists for some insights on that front. But let's talk about Marsh as a business and what you have been doing during this time, and what's been different for you.
We've been in a very lucky position, I do have to say. So our CEO Anthony Gruppo, which has been on your business club before, is very forward thinking in how he's tackled the lockdown and us as a business. So very early on, we all went to working from home. In fact, before it was officially announced that we should be. And I think professionally, Marsh Commercial put ourselves first as colleagues and staff. And I think that's really helped and galvanized us as a business. It means a lot when your company and your CEO thinks of you almost personally. In terms of what we've done as a business, we've opened up, so Anthony's opened up his own phone every evening throughout the original lockdown for staff members and colleagues to ring him and just ask questions, talk about the issues they're facing, and give a frank and honest opinion of where we are, which I think has really helped us as a team. There's over 2,500 of us throughout the UK. I think it's also brought us in some ways closer. We're having more conversations. We're able to have more Zoom meetings where more people can attend, which is probably not what it used to be. People be in and out of the office or not quite there. Or I think throughout lockdown, we've made time for each other, either by attending the Cardiff Life Awards as a group and having a few drinks, which was a nice time for us all to do, or just on a Friday having a Zoom call, catching up. How was the week? How what have we done? What's gone well for us, what hasn't, and discussing it openly as a team here in Cardiff. So that's been quite galvanizing.
It's really interesting to hear the culture you're talking about there, and we'll come on to that with our other panelists. I think just one point, it's one of the paradoxes of the pandemic that we've never been further apart, and yet we're closer still. We're having this sort of conversation we might not have had previously. But to your point about Anthony Gruppo and the senior team and so on, I'm sure that sense of being openness and being transparent for all businesses is incredibly welcome. We're all having to sort of, dare I say, reveal ourselves in a more direct way and more open way, because we're all attempting to understand this. Well, one last question for you, Rhys, at this stage. Which sectors have been stronger for Marsh as a business and perhaps weaker in these times?
Well, I think every sector goes through peaks and troughs throughout the entire lockdown period. for us, it's mainly about supporting our clients and our soon-to-be clients. So it doesn't matter what industry is being affected. We still put all the effort into our particular client and how they're doing. You know, we all know haulage sector done particularly well as an industry, although once again there are sectors of that, areas of that have struggled. So we put together our own transport team that works closely with us to help support that sector. Manufacturing as well. If you break it down, different parts of the manufacturing sector are suffering, yet others are really coming out strongly. So it depends on how each individual business has faced into the lockdown and worked with us. So, I mean, for us, it's just important to work with our clients daily. So, you know, making them aware of the FCA test case, which has gone on recently around business interruption, engaging with our clients on a regular basis, giving them feedback, giving them opportunities to our own COVID page on our website, which has lots of information and webinars that we've given out free to everyone to view and be a part of, and create almost like a community for our clients to engage and talk.
Yeah, again, that opportunity to be closer than you might have been otherwise. Again, it's like paradox. Okay, but Rhys, for now, if I can ask you to sort of unmute yourself through the powers of Zoom and retreat, and we'll bring forward Jess from NatWest, if we may. So Jess, are you hitting that Zoom button right now?
Yeah, I'm in, Greg.
Very good. Good to see you. Looking very well. So tell me, how have you been during this time?
Well, thanks for asking, because it's been an absolute roller coaster, I would say. I'm working from home, and as a frontline banker, like all of my team, we're out there with customers most of the time, spending time in the field. And at the moment, I'm locked in a box, and that's a bit challenging for all of our bankers. We have 52,000 people working from home, even the call centres, etc. So we've had to change our business massively. And I think the last few months has been definitely a roller coaster for our people and our customers, especially for, I've got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old from home, and school runs and home learning. So we've been right through all of that, like our customers. But on the positive side, we've had lots of time to think about ourselves, our lives, our businesses, and our people, really. And I think how we want to lead our teams has been really interesting.
And picking up something of Rhys's point, I mean, you're an outgoing, gregarious sort of person. You're used to being front with open with clients and so on, seeing them face to face. You've not been able to do that anywhere near as much. How has that been for you personally, but also professionally? How have you navigated that?
Okay, so that's been really challenging for our teams, because we've had to be connected. And I agree with what Rhys has said. And in terms of our teams, we've never been further apart, but we are very well connected. But that's been more challenging for our customers as well. We're so used to the habits of just popping out and having a coffee, or having a walk around their factory, or going to see their new premises. And now we have to do it via Zoom. And so we've had to change the way that our energy levels throughout the day are managed, or how we manage our customer meetings, because it's really strange, especially if they're new customers or we don't know them and they need money from us and we have to ask a lot of questions. So I think we've had to change and adapt everything from our spare bedrooms to our mindset.
When you mentioned energy levels, perhaps give some people top tips about how you personally try to plan your day to make sure you've got that drive when appropriate.
You know, Greg, that's really important, because fatigue will set in. And if you're sitting on Zoom all day, and sometimes I could be on Zoom for 8, sometimes 10 hours a day, or, my team, we spent over 150 hours on Zoom, just check-ins and catch-ups. It can drain you. So there's our operating rhythm has had to change. So for me, I put a gym in my garage, which helps. So I'm the first one up in the morning to make sure I go in there on the spin bike, or we go for walks, and we keep that energy level up, and we take regular breaks. We eat properly. We make sure that we go out, go for walks, and actually we challenge each other quite hard around that in terms of our teams.
Very good. Your title, Director, NatWest Commercial and Corporate Bank, and the quote, supporting the economy through enterprise entrepreneurship and sustainability. What has that meant in practice in these times?
So our key responsibility over the last few months when we went into lockdown, it was like our teams were just helicoptered into this project. Everything that we know in our jobs was ripped up and we had to start again. So our job was to be able to deliver the government schemes, and there was no handbook for this. We had to find a way to do it. And over 50% of the government schemes in the UK, NatWest were responsible for, and over 70% of the volume, which means that our teams felt like they were running a marathon every single day. Our customers were on the phone to us, everyone was in panic mode at the beginning, and we had to completely re-engineer what we're doing. Our balance sheet in Wales, in terms of, we have about £1.5 billion of debt out to businesses in Wales, and that's gone up by a few hundred million in a very, very short space of time. And when I look back, I can't believe that we were actually able to deliver that with the children at home, doing schooling, and we got through it every day as a team. So I have a huge amount of admiration for the employees that we have, but as well as for the business owners, because I know what they're going through, because we run our own business from home too. So I can completely understand how challenging it's been over the last few months for people.
These are days of great pressure, and great pressure needs great support. And what you've described in terms of, from a business point of view, in terms of market share, that's a very substantial. That's I'm assuming way higher than pro rata the NatWest typical share of sectors. But tell me this of what you've been doing. How much has been around loans and funding as opposed to advisory work?
Okay, that's interesting, because the relationship that we have with our customers has definitely got stronger and deeper over the last few months. Some of the customers that we probably didn't have that much relationship with, they maybe not borrowed anything from us before, now need to talk to us. And we're scenario planning with them around their cash flows. We've been very involved with the government and trying to support them on the government schemes and trying to help them engineer the scenarios for their business to work out how much money they need. Okay, because we don't know. A lot of it is finger in the air. How do we know how much money we need? So that's been very challenging for us. So in terms of advice, we've spent a lot of time with businesses to try and help them plan. The schemes are still open. And the news yesterday, there's so much uncertainty around how fast we can recover. And our priority at the moment is supporting customers to deliver those government schemes. That's the C-bills, the bounce back loan scheme, and the CL bills, which is for our larger customers. We have a number with £5 million more, for example, loans.
When you say there's some uncertainty about how we may recover, I think the prospects of that V-shaped recovery, which was talked about even maybe 4 weeks ago, that presumably has gone. And I've heard the best we might all expect is the Nike recovery. That it's the tick, how shallow that tick is. But we'll come on to that about the macro positioning. I just want to ask one last question on that loans point. In brief, which schemes are still open, and when's the current closing dates of such schemes?
Yeah, sure. So we've got till the end of the month. And I would recommend, if you are, to always go to your existing bank, not to another bank. So the bounce back loan scheme, which is the £50,000, which is available and it's 100% guaranteed by the government. It's self-assessment from a business, and you can have a loan in a few days' time. Some of them are going out the next day. Okay, but you'll be able to do that online through your bank's portal.
But that's limited to certain sizes of business, though, and indeed sectors as well, isn't it? What are the strictures around the bounce back?
Yeah, so there are certain sectors around agriculture, but most are applicable on that. But each different bank may have slightly different terms and conditions. So I would recommend you look on your bank's website to have a look at your application process. But it's £50, £50,000 is the maximum, but it's capped at 25% of your turnover. Okay, and then you have the C-bills loan, which you will apply to your bank. There will be an application process. We have been working with the professional community and your accountants, etc., to be able to help you quickly to get that application so it goes through right first time. Your bank may need to understand why you need the money, and they may actually say no if you can't afford it. But it's really important that you get some advice and you speak to your bank quickly, because there's not much time left on that scheme. And then and then the large scheme, that's the £50 million plus businesses, is the CL bills, which is still open as well till the end of the month, which is not long.
It's not long. September 30th is coming around like a train at the moment. But I said that's one last question. I'm going to ask one more, which is, very broadly, what proportion of loans have you turned down as opposed to being able to support?
Probably less than 1%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's very clear cut. Okay.
Yeah. And just on that point, that's really, really interesting. So we've been able to support as many businesses as we can by completely flexing our whole world and everything that we know in terms of lending guidelines. We're asking people to give a 3-year view to look forward. But the businesses that are struggling to be able to get funding now are the ones that were struggling before. Okay, that's really important because we don't look at current cash flows and current profit. We look at historic profits. We need to look at what they did last year to be able to service the loan going forward. So that's the key, really. So the ones that maybe not be able to afford it last year are the only ones that we've declined. And it's a handful in Wales.
Yeah. Okay, fully understood, Jess. If I could ask you to step back, and we'll bring Mark forward, and we'll bring you back to the panel session shortly. Thank you. Thank you. And good morning to Mark from Howells. How are you, sir? How are you this morning?
Good morning, Greg. Yeah, all good here. Thank you very much indeed. And really pleased to hear that the Cardiff Life magazine is coming back out soon. That will be there. That'll be there to cheer us all up, won't it? And I know
it will. I mean, I just want to echo the point that we, earlier. Our role is to be sort of plausibly positive. There's a lot of great stuff to celebrate in the city across the piece, from professional services to hospitality to arts and so on. But also, just as you say, in a sense, to cheer people up, to make us feel, we hope, yet better about this wonderful city. But so
that's right.
How you personally and the Howells team have been in these times. How has it worked managerially for you?
Well, I suppose, first of all, the key thing is that, all the family are well, hopefully the same with yourselves. All of our staff are well, they're fit and healthy. So, yeah, it's been an incredibly challenging 6 months, but we've tried to remain very optimistic during that period because at the end of the day, certainly looking at our own business, we learned a lot of lessons back in the recession of 2010 about how important it was to have a strong capital base for the business. So that we went into this downturn in a good place and really always see our opportunities at the end of the day, although trading in terms of working from home and so on is a challenge. So I think for our staff's benefit, we've tried to be positive and lead from the front, and so much so that we are on a recruitment drive at the moment, because being primarily a business that operates in the property arena, the property market is just in overdrive, and we have a challenge now that we didn't think we'd have in March. The challenge now is how can we keep all the balls in the air, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it'd be most remiss of me not to take that as a cue to plug the Cardiff Property Awards. It is remarkable how strong the property scene is, whether that's residentially. There appears to be quite a lot of capital from the capital, the other capital that is of London, a lot of London money coming through the whole of this wider region. And commercially, Cardiff has been the fastest growing city for how many years, and that propulsion still continues. So I'm sure you're busy there. You mentioned earlier about it's a time of opportunity for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Which areas particularly, which offerings of yours are most relevant in these times?
Well, we've been busy across the board, really, Greg, fortunately. So obviously the family teams are at full stretch. It has been a very difficult time, I think, for lots of families in terms of relationships within partnerships, issues with children. You can just picture the whole sort of range of problems that people have been facing, a lot of which come in the direction of our family team. The employment departments, as you can imagine, have been rushed off their feet with issues about employers who are looking potentially at redundancies, and employees who feel that they're being treated badly or that their companies don't have safe systems of working. So that those areas you would expect to have been strong. Obviously the wills and probate area, unfortunately for different reasons, has also been very, very active. And then the property, as I mentioned, which is our bread and butter effectively, we weren't really expecting the government and Welsh government to introduce stamp duty and land transaction incentives in the way in which they did. And I think introducing those incentives probably has created an overactive market, unfortunately. But all we can do is take advantage of those opportunities at the moment, because nobody quite knows how the market will react, I think, when those incentives fall away at the end of March next year.
Sorry, but just to understand that point, when you say overactive markets, meaning what? That it's overheated, or this is simply everyone sort of rushed off their feet, or what?
A combination, I would say. I think most individuals involved in the property business would say that properties are being snapped up very quickly, that prices seem to be increasing, and there is this sort of gold rush approach almost to buying property. And I suppose there should be some element of caution maybe introduced here, which is that when all the redundancies come through, which undoubtedly they will, when all the furlough schemes come to an end, and with the further measures introduced today, how sustainable will the market be next year? Now, as I say, we're optimistic, but we're also realistic, and there'll be fewer transactions, I suspect, next year. So, we could see a slight reverse, I suppose, in the current market conditions.
It feels like that moment when you learn to drive, you get sort of the kangaroo hops happening, that for a few months there were so few transactions because they simply couldn't happen.
That's
and
right.
That pent up demand, so there's more. And then the stamp duty has meant this accelerated, but presumably come March 31st, when, as you say, that scheme ends, there'll be some form of correction in that there'll be an artificially low period, April through June or whenever, when there just won't be the transactions because people want to get them done before the end of March. Is that how
That's right. Yeah, and I think that's a big concern to everybody who's involved in the property market, because in my opinion, and having been in this game a long time, the numbers that we're seeing coming through at the moment are out of sync in a way with the general economy.
Let's talk about the business in one respect, and then we'll come on to our panel session shortly. You mentioned you've been recruiting.
Yes.
So just tell us, if not quite the roles, but the type of people you've been looking for and how you've been able to, in the phrase, onboard them, perhaps almost exclusively virtually.
Yeah, okay. So we always recruit through a variety of channels. So we'll do our own internal marketing for positions. We'll work with recruitment companies. We'll use LinkedIn and so on and so forth. We've had a combination, I suppose, of Zoom interviews. We've done some actual interviews, provided people are comfortable coming into the office, and provided we ensure that there's social distancing. The roles that we're seeking to recruit are primarily people who've got experience. We're looking at solicitor level and below, and what we are finding is that there is quite a wealth of expertise out in the marketplace. Some people, I suppose, are looking for a slight change of lifestyle as a result of the past 6 months. So there are a lot of people who are potentially available, but our mantra has always been we only want to recruit the best people. The conveyancing regime is a very tricky one to get right. It's a transactional one. It's quite hard with the working from home element as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, our staff need to be supervised. We're very heavily regulated. We've got a lot of compliance issues, and there's a lot of data protection issues. So you put all of that into the mix, and you get a feel for how difficult it is, as I said, to keep all the balls in the air. And so if we have more people, then I think we've got a much better chance of doing just that.
Yeah, and then overlay, which we'll pick up with the others as well, overlay the point about culture, trying to bring someone into a business, starting next Monday, beginning next month, whatever, that you might have met a couple of times on Zoom and barely in real life, and they've got to get the rhythm of the company and its cultural values as well as the regulatory environment which you're working in. Mark, for now,
Yes.
to stay on camera, let's bring back Jessica and Rhys. Yes, hello, Rhys. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I want to open it out now and talking, of course, about last night's announcements, whether from a broader UK perspective or indeed Welsh specifically. What effect do you think those restrictions will have on your businesses, first of all? Then I'll ask you to go out to sectors, then to the Cardiff economy. Your businesses, what's going to be different? Are you in the office? Are you going to be continuing to work from the office occasionally?
So shall I begin?
Please
so
do.
at NatWest, we haven't returned to the offices yet. All our staff are still working from home, and early on our chief executive put that as something we're not going to look at until 2021, and they haven't even given us a date on that yet. So we're not seeing clients face to face either. So the effect around lockdowns, they don't really affect what we're doing at the moment, but they are affecting our customers' businesses and our customers' cash flow forecasting, scenario planning has all got to start again. So lots of them are going to have a huge effect, more than us as employees.
Yeah, and Rhys, from Marsh's point of view, as I gather, the approach had been, at least to date, is largely to trust the team and for you to figure out the best way, potentially including going into the office. Is going to the office an option as of right now, do you think, for Marsh?
It is. We started to slowly open up some of our offices, socially distanced, obviously, put in places the measures that people could go in there safely and have confidence that if they did have to go to the office, they would be there safely. So we have looked at if there has been a group email out to us to say that if you can work from home, then do so. So there are some people who can't, that people have issues at home. So some of our offices will be staying open. But for the majority of the time, it's we've got all the equipment that we need, phones, laptops, all the regular stuff. So if you can work from home safely, then do so. We have been quietly visiting clients, if we, slowly visiting clients if we need to, making sure that we put in place all the relevant preventative measures. So we'll just go on a case-by-case basis whether that needs to happen. But I think the importance has been putting us and making us feel safe and secure and putting the onus on us of what we want to do. I think that's been really important. And hearing from Jessica is a very similar thing. If your staff feel safe and confident, they will work harder and they will do more, and they will, it's that culture element that you need.
Couple of questions about this. Very roughly, how many people do you have in the Cardiff team in Marsh, and what sort of proportion have been going in the office?
Well, so we've got 3 offices in Cardiff across the group. So our actual Marsh commercial office has been closed. There's about 25 of us, in that particular office, but we haven't reopened that particular office. But we do have options within our wider group to a hot desk in some of our sites in Cardiff. But yeah, at this point, we're not going back into offices. No need if we can communicate and engage with each other and our clients from home.
This is a question that we're facing with Media Clash. Everyone is facing with every business. Do you think there's a need either from Marsh's point of view or from any business's point of view to be yet tighter about not going to the office as a result of yesterday, or is it essentially we're pretty much the same place as we were?
I think our leadership team will have their own views on this, and I think once again we've not forced or requested anyone to return to office who doesn't feel safe. I don't think any further restrictions need to be put in place for us. It's very much been about if you feel safe and we've got the availability for you, i.e. with a desk that is safe and 2 meters apart, etc., then do so. Most people who I've spoken to within the office already have said, look, they're not looking to go around the country. So they're not looking to go back because it's just about how you feel and how safe you feel. You don't want to put anyone else at risk, and that's been felt across all of our colleagues, across all the country, in all honesty.
And Mark, are you in the office at the moment? I can't quite tell.
Yeah, that's right. So law firms have been allowed to open throughout the whole process. So we have remained open, and what we have done is increased the numbers who are back in the office over the past 6 months. And I think one of the frustrations that I would have as the managing director of the business is that I think the government have done a great job in terms of the financial support that they have made available. And I think they are in a no-win situation because nobody really knows about this disease. And so everybody is running scared to a certain extent. I think where the frustrations are coming for business is that, you know, one minute you have Welsh government saying there's no need to wear a mask because there's no benefit. And then there's a complete about turn and you have to. And the impression I've got really is that we all should respect the coronavirus disease, but I don't think we should be afraid of it. And I think there is a lot of fear within the community that is going to have a terrible effect on people's mental health, depression, loneliness. And, you know, I would be in favour, I have to say, of there being a more general return to the office environment, provided that office environment is as safe as you can make it. And let's be fair, nothing is 100% safe.
Yeah. Well, I suspect there's two things happening. One is that everything is changing, and sometimes the tectonic plates shift quite dramatically, as they appeared to yesterday. And the other is, as you say, no one has a clear sense of what is right to do. And it seems, for, you know, as both a participant and an observer, that at times the troops have been ahead of the generals when it's come to the government, that often people have been more cautious than the government has said. I don't know if you saw the poll last night. People felt the new measures don't go far enough. And there's a bigger proportion saying that than those who felt it when they've gone too far. But we were all evolving our position. And I want to come on to the broader point about the Cardiff economy. And Jesse talked about remodelling cash flows and so on. Are you expecting, would you advise that business will be tougher as a result of these new restrictions, or essentially it's up to all of us to drive our business and to run as hard as we can, and who knows where we end?
All of that, Greg, actually. So, and it's sector specific, okay? There are different sectors that will be affected differently. You know, Rhys mentioned about some of the manufacturers. We've got some businesses that have spent time over the last few months and been able to re-engineer their business, and they're going to be far stronger going forward. Okay, but the recent news around further lockdowns and closing hours, etc., is really going to hit the retail and hospitality sector hard over the winter months. And I agree, people's confidence to go to places is low. And all of a sudden we've had another shock factor, whereas everything seemed to be okay in August and we've seen some growth, and it's going to slow down. So my advice is for people to scenario plan and to protect their business and their liquidity, and not make any rash decisions, because there are lots of businesses at the moment who are sitting on their C-bills loans and their bounce back loans, and they haven't spent them, they haven't needed them yet, right? But this is going to be a long time before we get back to any sense of normal. So lots of our customers say, well, can I spend it on something else? And I'm like, hold it as long as you can. So my advice is to protect your liquidity through the winter.
I mean, those loans can, in certain circumstances, depending on the provider, be used for acquisitions. And I guess that it is one of the sort of, you know, the effects of the deleterious business environment means that there may well be some distressed assets out there. It's a very open question, and in some ways quite a dumb question. But would you advise some clients, to be thinking actively of acquiring in these times? Is that an option for sustainable growth and business development?
Well, I absolutely think that's something people should consider if they have a strong enough base in their business. And I have a number of them on that we're talking to already. We've got management buyouts, we've got a number of acquisitions. People have decided that they've run out of steam to run their business, and they just want to go for it, and they want to go and do something else. So I think there will be some consolidation. And I think that there will be some businesses that are going to struggle next year, especially when their loans are being repaid, and their bills of everything that they've pushed forward start to come into the spring, really. So yes, I would recommend that people think about investing in their business, but without risk of losing liquidity and not putting their business at risk.
You've each mentioned about sectors, and of course, at every stage, all of this has been patchy and different sectors have been more or less hit. The professional services sector, en masse, I mean, you're obviously each in different aspects, has been much less hit than others. Do you almost feel bulletproof that come what may, your services are going to be required, and it's sad what's happening in certain sectors, but you're fine? Is that how the world looks to you? Any three of you?
It's quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. We have, billions of our capital out there at the moment. And it's huge for us in terms of the provisions that we have to raise as a bank and how much profit that we're making as a business. This year, we haven't taken any fees. We're going to really struggle next year to hit what we've done. We've had to reforecast. So banks are going to have a serious effect next year to our profitability and to our baselines.
And I guess at the retail end of the bank, that's differently affected by structural change. So perhaps park that point. But Mark or Rhys, do you? I don't mean it quite as crassly as bulletproof. It sounds rather inappropriate. But do you feel as though you're actually in a pretty good place as businesses because your services are, if anything, yet more in demand than previously?
Well, I'd say that we're in as good a place as we could have expected. We're definitely not bulletproof. We're strong. I think our only potential weakness is keeping our staff confident in what we're doing, keeping the support of our staff, because obviously without them, we have no business. And I think that is my biggest worry, particularly as I said earlier, with the sort of conflicting advice that is coming out, which is making people very nervous again, when at the end of the day, the numbers would suggest that they shouldn't be that nervous, and that we have just got to learn to live with the situation, rightly or wrongly. And we owe it to one another, I think, to show some confidence in one another.
And to that confidence point, one way or another, whatever our hand is, we've got to play to the best of our ability and just get on with it. And the macro we can't influence. I mean, maybe just through the scale of NatWest, you can influence the macro position, but for most of us, we simply can't. We just have to be the recipients of the wisdom from on high and just get on with our business as best we can. Rhys, how does it feel? What's the sort of tempo inside Marsh at the moment about confidence about you as a team and what you're doing as a business? Do you feel sort of, pretty good, even though others are having a pretty tough time?
I mean, it's a difficult one to say. At the end of the day, yes, we're a global company in Marsh. We're across, like we said, we're across the world. We have 2,500 staff in Marsh Commercial just in the UK itself. So there is a confidence there. However, that comes with pitfalls in itself. Certain countries are going through a worse economic decline than others at the minute. The virus is hitting, South America particularly poorly at the minute, whereas, other countries are coming on the other side of it. So there's a whole global piece within that. But if we bring it down to, like you said, the micro to me, my little office down here in Cardiff, as it were, we're confident in our business, we're confident in our offerings, we're confident in our people. And I think that's, echoes something what Mark said. You have to be confident in your team. And I can honestly say that I think we have the best offerings, the best team that's out there in the market at this point, but we rely on other businesses. Although insurance is a necessity for every company out there in some respect, if whole sectors, have a huge downturn, no one's bulletproof. You just got to look at the major retailers, like, for example, John Lewis, for example, that's just had a huge problem recently with their retail and their footprint. But it's not just those; it's across every sector. Where you think these stalwarts of the country are going to manage, when you look a little bit deeper, there are underlying issues. But yeah, I'm confident in the team. I'm confident in my colleagues. I'm confident in my peers, and I'm confident in the backing that we have at Marsh Commercial. It's just a reliance on other businesses to put in place the measure they need to support themselves, and we are there as a consultative entity to support them through this and future-proof them, very much like Jess would do with the loan system. We're not talking anymore of 1 year or 6 month plans. It's 3-year plans. What's your plan for 5 years time? When we're looking to come out of this, what's your growth plan? What are the risks emerging? There are new and different risks, but we've been very influential at a national level within the business interruption test case that is going, which has just recently been announced in court. So there's a huge amount, not just our low level for the clients, but in the insurance world as well. So it's just ever changing. I think it probably, which seems very stupid to say, and apologies to everyone listening, but yeah, it is an ever changing world, and you just have to move with it and be confident with it.
One of the advantages that we've all had, you imagine if this pandemic, it's terrible when it happens anytime, but it's happening at a time when we have this technology, we can talk and share and so on. I did notice just now that Layla Fear raised a hand, virtually at least. Layla, perhaps if you could send your question in writing. Oh, look at that, you have at that very moment. Question for all panelists, maybe specifically Jess. Layla Fear, she runs her own business. What do you think the impact will be for small businesses in the next year? And clearly it's sector specific. And she says, which sectors do you think will benefit and which ones are most at risk? You've each touched on several in both cases. Are there other fresh points you'd like to make about the at-risk or the beneficiaries, and slightly more generally about smaller businesses and what it's like in these times?
Okay, so I think lots of the businesses have changed the way that they work, and in particular online. I think digital businesses that don't have to have workforce in their factories, etc. And people have changed. Like, for example, I have a training provider that provided training, and all of a sudden they put their courses online. Well, actually, this business has massively reduced its costs, has got a far better reach, and is going to be more successful going forward. So I think thinking about how you manage your cost base and how you reach a wider community, whether it is a different ordering system or better deliveries or something like that, I think is pretty wide really in terms of people that are going to be successful. And I think the most successful will be the ones that really manage their cost.
And you didn't quite say it this way round, but it's I've heard it expressed as a time of forced experimentation. Because you can't do all that you did previously, you might as well try new stuff. And if there are, online routes to market, or again, parochially, us with the Cardiff Life Awards was a revelation that there's a much longer tail of people, of friends, family, colleagues and so on, who can watch, who wouldn't otherwise watch, to the extent that, assuming we're doing them in real life next time round, we will also have an online element as well to get that bigger reach. She, in fact, Layla, it turns out, is a training provider who's moved online, and so you couldn't have been more specific had you tried. Any other points, either from Mark or Rhys, about sectors which have the opportunity to benefit that you've seen in recent times, who've done this terrible word, but pivoted to different business models, or not?
Well, yeah. So I think like Jess has said, anything to do with online AI technology-based services are really looking to move forward. Providing different software and workarounds, I believe is the term they like to use around different systems. Reducing cost is key, and the way to do that is through new technologies. We've seen the transport industry, particularly across certain parts of it, fare particularly well. And manufacturers who have pivoted, many PPE manufacturers out there are obviously doing very, very well in there. I think anyone associated with retail and leisure will struggle. It's quite obviously in restaurants, and then that's where you get the sector split. So within manufacturing, people who produce for the food and leisure sector are struggling out there. So there are some I wouldn't say wins, I don't think is the right word, but there are some positive stories to come out of this for some businesses who have worked and sort of faced into this lockdown and crisis and changed their operating systems, etc. But hopefully more can do that, and more can learn. Just seen Nike say that they're going to potentially go fully online within the next 3 years. So there's even the major brands and companies are looking to change how they work.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of retail estates. That's quite a big impact. Yep. I'd like to move on to a couple other areas. One is about collaboration. It's clear in sectors, but certainly the professional services sectors, that collaboration is key. You have relationships, you have referrers on complex pieces, you have complementary teams with complementary skills, etc. Has it actually been more marked in these times? And what have you been doing to keep that association, pipeline, relationship and so on coming? Because you haven't been able to do the networking events and on the circuit as previously. What's been your approach to that form of business development?
I think from our perspective, Greg, it's just been a case of talking, really, and it's the same with your staff, keeping the dialogue going, communicating. There's been a lot more, as we all know, Zoom activity, etc. But at the end of the day, that is so sort of one-dimensional that it is very hard to build relationships and to be creative in that way. And that is why I think that even if there is still a strong working from home mentality, that every business should have some form of office presence, so that actual physical creativity, which exists between human people when they interact with one another, is not lost. And those are important skills from our perspective.
Yeah. Jess, you look like you're about to join.
I completely agree with Mark. I think there needs to be a balance about it all. I polled my teams and asked them, what do they want? Do they want to work from home or the office, or a combination? 100% said combination to see people. So, I think it's going to be really interesting for us what the future looks like. But in terms of business development, we've really struggled to be able to support our people, support the government loans. And we weren't able to take on new customers for quite some time, and we're hoping to change that next quarter. But there's quite a few of our teams that were missing networking, missing going out to see people, having a coffee, and generating business through their network, and wrapping those people around our customers. So there's definitely a huge gap there that needs to fit in for us.
To Mark's point, I'm sure we all face this exact challenge of wanting to be as confident and as out there, whether it's the coffees or the networking events, or dare I say awards, because I always say that. But it's difficult to balance that with the concerns that individuals have. So, but I want to come to another aspect of new business development, which is this: that one way or another, much of your value, I'm not literally talking about your companies, but the sector, professional services, slightly more generally. One way or another, your value is enshrined in your brand and the principle of trust. There are other companies in your sector who do, broadly speaking, much as you do, who have similar accreditations and qualifications that you and your teams have, and so on. Clients know that, we all know that. There's a degree of transparency in business now that perhaps wasn't previously. So on the key differentiators, how do you engender personal trust, and how do you explain and extend the brand in these times?
So if you don't mind, I'll just talk about that one, because our brand and our strategy is really, really important to us. It's the key heartbeat of what we do. So we've got a purposeful strategy, and we changed this on the 14th of February, which means that what we do as a bank is all about supporting our customers, our people, and our communities and families thrive. That's what our Chief Executive, Alison Rose, has put out there. So everything we do with our NatWest Cymru board in terms of our support to communities, we're doing a huge amount with schools, with sustainability. We're not just bankers, we don't just lend money, we're doing a huge amount and using our presence in our local communities to be able to support that. And that's quite important for us. And NatWest is a business which is purpose. And when we opened up the schemes, we were really fast and really flexible around personal guarantees, no cash flows, and we actually led and changed the way the other banks thought about that. And that's part of our strategy, was about being purposeful.
And thank you. And Mark, to this trust point, that or another, as a as a potential client, not quite our life is in your hands, but we absolutely, you have to trust of course the probity of the professional service company that you're engaging with, but really their ability to interpret. How complex is that issue in this sort of largely virtual world for you and your team?
Well, it's not easy. I mean, let's be fair. And I suppose the other point I should make is that as we are still a profession, first and foremost, more than a business, our clients' interests are paramount. So their interests have to come before everybody else's interests. And I think our staff do understand that no matter what their particular issues are in their day-to-day life, that if we don't serve our clients' interests properly, we let them down. And if we let them down, that is a bad thing from a business perspective as well as the professional angle. So we think we've got a good culture within the business. We've got a fantastic staff, and I know that the other panelists have said similar things. We're very fortunate in those people, and what we have got to try and do, I think, is just reassure them that we are moving through this coronavirus situation in the best possible fashion, keeping everybody's health to the forefront, but at the same time ensuring that we are protecting the jobs, because if we don't protect those jobs, then our staff and their families only have bigger problems to contend with. And that is my worry, really, about some of the smaller businesses that rely upon office workers, who are, I think, in a very, very bad way, because there's no custom to be had.
We're coming to the end of this, and I want to move on to a wider point, and then come back to this area of the good that people do. The wider point is this: there has been for some time the CBI, the TUC, multiple organisations have been saying more needs to be done by government to stop this cliff edge of unemployment that's about to happen. Whether it's the furlough scheme extended, which looks unlikely for political reasons, but some other measures. Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, gave a very strong hint yesterday about this. Do you expect there to be significant support for businesses to be announced by government in the coming days, if not
Yes.
weeks? Jess?
No, I don't actually.
Personally, I don't think that the...
Sorry, let's just finish with Jess and then come to Mark, if we do that.
No, and that's only my personal opinion. I don't have any insight into the government, but we are very firm and fixed in terms of the government schemes are ending. And I think the government, as Mark mentioned earlier, they're in a no-win situation, right? They can't win here, but they have to put a bookend on it. And I think I don't think that there'll be more, but that's my opinion.
And Mark, it sounds like you're concurring with that.
Yeah.
Expecting.
I do agree with that, and and as a taxpayer, which we all are, I'm not sure that they should do very much more, because in the main, I think, as I have said earlier, we have to learn to live with the situation, and we have to have some confidence in each other to enable businesses to try and get back to some element of normality, because without that normality and that trade, there's no amount of money that the government could throw at this that would cure the problem.
I guess, one contrary observation might be what the German government have done, which is a longer form. It's similar to the furlough scheme, but not quite the same, but much longer, and it's a longer time horizon, which enables, they would argue, a more careful and sustained and supported recovery, which means much less unemployment and all else that goes with that, loss of tax income and mental health issues. Each economy is different. What do you think, Rhys? Are you hoping, expecting, believing there to be further measures?
I'm hoping. I think it's a strong message from the Governor of the Bank of England yesterday. I do think that something may be done, whether it is sector specific as opposed to a generalised furlough of everyone. I echo Mark's point, as a taxpayer, etc. But at the same time, if the amount of redundancy we've already seen from companies will only just increase coming into October when furlough ends officially. It will have a more detrimental effect on our society, on mental health, on the NHS, etc. when people end up, with mental health issues moving through the NHS. So I would like to think, once again, personal opinion only, unless Jess has got anything else that she might know behind there at NatWest, personal opinion only, that I'd like to hope that sector-specific furlough could be there, especially for the leisure, tourism, coach companies, which are being told how to manage their businesses. And I think that's the difference, in the financial sectors like Mark and Jessica, and we're not being told how we deal with our staff, what times we can open, how we can talk to people. Yet there are sectors out there that are being told you can't have this many people on a coach, for example. You can't have this many people in a restaurant. So I think there needs to be some government support, personally, again, for those industry specific sectors. But I'm sure if I put that on Twitter or LinkedIn, my lord, it'll be a small bomb that would go off, and I'll have a lot of comments. But That's my
Well,
personal opinion.
Twitter or wherever isn't always the best forum for nuanced, significant conversation, let's be honest. I think you've actually expressed it very eloquently. I've not heard it put in those terms previously, but sectors where government is inhibiting, for good reasons, inhibiting people's ability to trade, there is an element potentially of quid pro quo in terms of potential support. Who knows? One last question to you, then one brief thing at the end. The last question is this. As smart thinkers, which you obviously all are, from leading pro services, what single piece of advice would you give to local businesses listening to this and watching it subsequently on YouTube?
Well, I think if we're talking industry specific, you know, you need to have a long-term contingency plan for your business. You need to speak to the relevant professional services to help you move through that. There's no point suffering in silence. You know, talk to your local, you know, to your solicitor that you have in place. Talk to your bank. Talk to your insurance broker. If they're not giving you the advice that's there, talk to somebody who you think can help you. And I think it's important to literally talk. I think Mark said it previously. Talk to these people. Talk to the professionals to understand your long-term goals and how to get there. We can't do this alone, and it's as simple as that.
Can't do it alone. Long-term plan. Talk to people. Mark or Jess, any other specific points to those watching?
From me as a banker, it would be to budget and forecast your cash. When is it going to run out and how much are you going to need? So I would be recommending people a scenario plan, because one is not going to be right, but have a look at your margins, have a look at your budgets, and have a look when your cash is going to run out. So forecasting. Yeah,
cash as ever is king, but if anything, whatever is above king, emperor or something in these times. Mark?
No, I agree with Rhys and with Jess. No, nothing else to add to that, really.
Okay, let's go on to our final point. It has been touching during these horrendous times for many to see how the businesses and people of Cardiff are creating clever ways to support and help where they can, and we've been sharing those on Cardiff Live with our hashtag Cardiff Together to help promote and celebrate the good that people do. So I could ask Jess, perhaps an instance that struck you in recent times.
Well, there's been so many, and we've been trying to support the shop local movement. And one of our bankers locked up working from home in Whitchurch. He's been getting on his bike, riding into town and supporting some of the local bakeries and sandwich shops, etc. And he's been delivering lunches to some of his neighbours, his customers and his colleagues down around Whitchurch, which is quite nice that he's into town and trying to help the businesses there. So
lovely, helping people, helping local businesses, and doing it ecologically on a bike, which is sweet. Rhys?
Yeah, I think echoing what Jess, we've all seen huge gestures of goodwill towards people. But one of my colleagues, Jo, is a massive baker and cooker, and she loves to get out there. And her street has lots of people self-isolating due to their age, so she's been every Friday cooking great big meals all day for them to have and you know, to take back into their homes. And they've been sort of just giving a few pounds here and there as a thank you. And instead of taking that to buy more goods, she's given it all to Cancer Research Wales, who I think are an incredible charity and need our support really over this lockdown and beyond.
Very good point. And Mark, I think you were going to echo the point about charities, I suspect.
Well, I think so, but I wouldn't say from a financial perspective necessarily. I think, yes, they need money, of course, but I think the bigger issue with some individuals who need assistance, it's more emotional, frankly. So there are a lot of young children who have serious illnesses. They're having operations that have been cancelled. They're having to shield. They can be quite isolated. So what they need is somebody to talk to effectively. So we work with Dreams and Wishes. I think you know that my wife is an ambassador. She's also an employee of this firm. And I think she has spent quite a lot of time talking to the children, talking to the parents, and making them feel as if they have actually got somebody there for them. And that they're not alone. You know, it's a very sad situation to have, but we try to do our best to help.
Yeah. Well, you and Rhys and Jess and your organisations and thousands across Cardiff have been extraordinarily thoughtful. I've said it before, in the toughest of times, people show their best, and it has been so touching to see that, and frankly also to help share that. We're going to wrap now, and our thanks to our panellists this morning, to Rhys Perkins of Marsh Commercial, Jess Simpson of NatWest, Mark Hobbs of Howells Solicitors. Thank you for your candour and your openness here. Thank you to everyone watching and for your questions. I'm afraid we weren't able to take all of those questions, but we'll follow as we can. Look out for our next Cardiff Life Business Club next month. Please talk to us about our new Cardiff Life Business Surgeries, B2B companies, and Cardiff Life Presents for consumer companies. We want to have deep dives into an individual company's offering and to explore it in more depth than we've been able to do today about the service offering that you have. Very best wishes to all our panellists for their businesses and of course to all in the pro services sector. Indeed, good luck and good wisdom to all. Please get your nominations in for the Cardiff Property Awards and talk to us about those remaining sponsorships. It's a great way to reach out to generate that new business and so on. Of course, it's not been the best of times for everyone here, but that's exactly why we've all got to get going and do what we can to generate business. In closing, perhaps think of this as one observation. When the tide goes out, the shore is revealed in all its teeming complexities of the beautiful, the unexpected, and the plain weird, weirdly unidentifiable, and the newly washed reality. And it's the same in these times. The tide of our uncertainties has rolled back since the spring, revealing us in our peculiar new surroundings. And hitherto, hidden good has been revealed. Enough. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been the Cardiff Life Business Club. Thank you. Cardiff together. Thanks.
Thanks, Ray. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.